Out of all the characters being added to Honkai Star Rail, I think Yukong's gonna be my most anticipated one. Not an exception to the rule that Harmony characters are really, really good. I mean, just look at the Harmony characters we have already, right? We have Bronya, we have Asta, we have Ting. Now, Bronya out of these three was probably the only one that was said, hey, this character is gonna be really good right away. It took a lot of time for people to warm up to Asta. It took some people a lot of time to warm up to Ting Yun as well. Still, sometimes today, you won't see people thinking that Ting's a good character. You're one of those people that think she's really under par.
I'm coming to get you. I'm gonna lock you up.
So where's Yukong gonna line up between these three different characters here? So just like Asta, we're gonna have a couple of different buffs, and an attack buff is gonna be one of the big ones that we can do with Yukong. Now, Yukong's is gonna be on her skill, and at talent level, I think it's 9 or 10. It's around a 75% attack buff. That's like having maximum stacks on Asta, which early on, you know, Asta can be a little troublesome to keep those stacks up on her. But as you gain access to greater Eidolons and level her up, it's easier to keep her stacks up. Whereas Yukong's just gonna use that skill and give a 75% attack buff basically for the next two people to take their turns after her, which means unlike Asta, you're gonna wanna have to speed tune your Yukong. So you have your DPS characters taking some turns after your Yukong goes. You're gonna want to have someone like Ting Yun, or you have your main DPS go after your Yukong, so they have the attack buff. And then someone like Seele would be very good to be able to gain access to extra durations of that attack buff by facilitating and breaking the game with extra turn mechanics, activating ultimates, stuff like that. It's gonna be very good with Yukong. She's a very hyper-focused character. Yukong also is gonna be able to do some nice damage as well. If you take a look at a main damage dealer, so someone like Seele, if you look at her skill here, she's gonna be doing 192% mod on her skill. She's also gonna have like a 382 mod on her ultimate. Yukong's gonna have an above 300% mod on her ultimate. So while it's not gonna be like in the 400s like a main DPS, Yukong's ultimate's gonna hit pretty hard. Also considering that you're gonna be activating Yukong's ultimate during the duration of her attack buff. That's how you're gonna wanna play the character. You use Yukong's skill, your whole party gets the attack buff. You then use your ultimate while you have that attack buff. Because not only do you do more damage with your Yukong, because you have an attack buff, but Yukong's going to then give a crit chance and crit damage buff to the whole party because you used your ultimate on her while she had her own attack buff. She has her own little gimmick where if you have her like bow and arrow flare move, whatever it's called, that gives you an attack buff. When you have that active and you use your ultimate, it's gonna do the damage and it's gonna give the whole party a crit chance and crit damage buff as well. So she's an incredibly hyper-focused Harmony support character. She only has that one downside really so far. If you want to have the ability to speed tune her, and to do that, you're gonna need access to certain gear. As you can see, I have like 148 Ting, 145 Bronya, 122 Asta, 146 Seele. I'm in the middle of speed tuning some people, and some gear that can help you speed tune characters at the start of battle or during the duration of the battle itself. It's not just the speed stat, but also stuff like these different relic sets here. So the wind set here is actually very good at helping you speed tune characters in the middle of battle because it's going to action forward them by 25% when you use their ultimate. This is going to allow you to speed tune them at the start of the battle, so you can push up over different DPS or other supports by activating their ultimate at the start of the battle if that is something that you can do. But it's also going to help you in like, you know, phase 3, right? Cycle 3, cycle 4, cycle 5, help you get some extra pushes a couple of times to then speed tune your supports to go above your DPS later on in the fight too. But you also have this 2-piece set here that gives you energy regen, which is great for supports, but it also is going to give you this advanced forward 40% upon entering battle. And if you have this with the 120 speed, you're basically going to be able to go above pretty much anyone in your team that doesn't have this set upon entering battle. Because let's talk about this scenario for an example. Maybe you want her to go after one of your characters, but before your other two characters, if you want to speed tune your Yukong that way. Well, I kind of already have my team set up that way, right? So if I have a 148 speed character and both of my characters are on the push set, both of my characters will go faster than my two characters who do not have this set, just because it's the 40% action value push. That's awesome. So I'll have both those characters go before the other two characters who don't have the set. And then if I want that character to go first in the situation such as this one with Ting Yun, I just make her faster than my Bronya. This way my team can go first, my Bronya can go second, and then my Asta will go third because, well, my Asta, even though she's only 122 speed and is actually slower than Sayla, guess what? This Asta is on the 2-piece here, gets the 40% action value push, pushes me up, and then my Sayla gets to go if I didn't push her with the Bronya earlier. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do here, and a lot of this you might be seeing playing in the background because you can really get a deep dive into this mechanic if it's something that you're really enjoying. I want to talk more about Yukong, but I have a video about that as well. And we don't know a lot about her major traces right now or even her Eidolons, but we do know that she's also going to be able to break imaginary weak enemies. She's going to be able to do bonus toughness damage, I should say, if I want to be 100% accurate. Bonus toughness damage based on one of her own passives, which is pretty nice as well, especially since she's an imaginary character. Imaginary enemies, maybe they're a little bit rare. Maybe you don't have a lot of imaginary weak enemies to use that on, but you know what? I heard that in this patch somewhere, there's a character coming out that can make enemies weak to elements that they're not normally weak to. And if you have like a dual element team and like maybe it's like already weak to quantum, you have like 2 quantum characters, and like you go to make it weak to your other elements, like maybe 2 imaginary characters, and since it's already weak to quantum and it doesn't want to do quantum weakness again, it'll like make it weak to imaginary. You can pretty much take any quantum weak enemy and always make it weak to imaginary, or any imaginary weak enemy and always make it weak to quantum. I feel like there might be something there with that, but she's gonna be like this sub DPS support. Now, support's gonna be the first thing that she does and how you're gonna want to build her. You're gonna want to build her with the speed tuning. You're gonna want to build her with the proper amount of energy regeneration because you're gonna want her to use her skill. You're gonna want her to get that attack buff up. You're gonna want her to generate her ultimate gauge as fast as possible so you can use her ultimate, so you can give the crit chance, crit damage buff. In 20-something crit chance, and I think it's like 65 crit damage, 24 or something crit chance, I forget off the top of my head, that I saw would cap me out on a build like this. You know, I'd go to like 100 crit chance and 195 crit damage. That seems pretty good. You know, she's going to be very, very good in these aggressive teams. She does have a pretty high multiplier for her ultimate, but that is something that you're going to have to build her for secondarily. You're going to want to focus on your speed tuning and your energy regeneration first, and then you can get some crit chance and you can get some crit damage in there as well. Because keep in mind, she's going to be giving your whole team, including herself, an attack buff as well. So it's going to help her damage go up a little bit there. She's also going to be giving a crit chance and a crit damage buff to your whole party as well. And that's going to be sort of a little bit of a weakness of Yukong, is that especially if you're not speed tuned right, you're going to activate your skill. One of your skills is going to go into Bronya, and there's one of your turn of attack buff into your Bronya. Your Bronya activates her skill, pushes up your DPS. That's the second turn, and now your Yukong buff could be gone. So that's something that we're gonna have to think about. Maybe she's gonna have some major traces that sort of eliminate that as a not really a problem, but as a play style choice, I guess, of Yukong. But she's really gonna want to activate that buff, activate her burst, and then have 2 turns where her buff is very valuable. Maybe it's, you know, a Tingyun that's built around getting that 75% attack buff. So she's built for extra crit chance. She's built for extra crit damage because with the attack buff, your Tingyun can already max out her buff from her skill because you're going to have that 75% attack buff. And then you want the secondary buff to be like on a Sayla, right? So you want to use Yukong's skill, double buff 2 DPS, or buff someone like Ting who can take advantage of the attack buff, and then buff someone like your main DPS. So I think Yukong's going to be a good character. I think she's going to be very, very strong. I think there's going to be a lot of lukewarm first impressions of people playing with her when they get their hands on her, possibly because she does need those specific criteria to be met. She could become even more skill point hungry if you're not speed tuned right. If your characters that are in the wrong orders, which is what speed tuning is, or maybe your party makeup doesn't really utilize the full 75% attack value buff between the whole party for 2 turns. Maybe only getting 1 turn of value out of that. Maybe you're running with someone like Clara and it's like, all right, you know, Yukon go. And then it's like all your teammates go and then the enemies go and Clara's like, I'm countering now. And like your attack buff's gone. Like it doesn't matter. Like you didn't really do anything because you weren't speed tuned correctly. So there's a lot of things that could make her seem pretty bad. She's going to be, I think, in more of aggressive team comps as we gain access to better gear, better team compositions. But the fact is that she's a harmony character. So we have great light cones we can use on her. Something like past and future, the Bronya card. listen, if you're speed tuned right, this card's going to be pretty good for you. If your team composition and your speed tuning line up, this is going to be nice. But you don't want to have this on a Yukong, be like, all right, my Yukong goes and then my Asta goes. You're like, sweet. Past and future, my Asta. Like, no one cares about that. But probably some of the best cards to throw in her is gonna be something like Meshing Cogs if you need to get a little bit more energy to use that ultimate a little more often. Or the 4-star of this, I forget what it is off the top of my head, but it gives you energy and it gives you break effect up, which is pretty nice. And remember, if you don't get it from the Lucha banner in 1.1, you can get it for free from an event in 1.2.